Hello, everybody, and welcome to Columbia Climate School's graduate programs info session. This is going to be a very kind of broad overview of the Columbia Climate School graduate program portfolio. We are going to be getting started in about 1 to 2 minutes. I like to wait to allow all the registrants to kind of fill into the Zoom room. So while we are waiting, I always do the same thing. I love to know where everybody is joining us from. I already saw by the registration sheet, it's quite a global community, but it's worth just asking again. So the chat function should be turned off for this webinar, but you can use the Q&A function. So if you could, feel free to type in the Q&A where you are joining us from. So city, state, country, we would love to know. Feel free to type that in and I'll go ahead and do an announcement. All the way from China. Welcome. Wow, it's late over there by you. New York, Prasoon, welcome. We love to know the borough too, Prasoon, just throwing it out there. Damaris Diaz, who is my colleague that is managing the Q&A, is a New York City native. So we always love to know the borough. Mary, all the way from Larchmont, welcome. We love Westchester. Boulder, Colorado, Andrew. Shanghai, China, fantastic. Hannah Fernandez is in Manila, Philippines. That's amazing, guys. Queens is here. Welcome. Eitan, welcome from London. Lagos, Nigeria, welcome. Astana, Kazakhstan, phenomenal. Anna's from Brazil. Brooklyn is in the house. Ireland, welcome. San Diego, California. Excellent. Southern Delaware. Ashley, I love the specificity. Not just anywhere, but Southern Delaware. You should be aware. That's phenomenal. Bangladesh. Heather's in Manhattan. Korea. New Hartford, New York. Awesome, Megan. Welcome. All right, good. We're going to have fun today. This is, again, going to be, think of this as more of a preview to Columbia Climate School. I love that you're all joining me in July. I'm genuinely thrilled about that because that means you guys are planners. You're really thinking about graduate school well ahead of time. So again, think of this as a preview presentation. And as we progress through what we like to call our recruitment cycle, you are going to get more kind of curated information sessions, really depending upon the program with which is your primary program of interest. So think of this as just a broad kind of a menu item of what's available at the climate school. And then in the coming months, and in fact, we can share those dates with you now. All of our program specific info sessions are already scheduled. Actually, Damaris, if you want to put that in the chat box, but in the coming months, definitely check those out. Register for the specific program virtual sessions. So let's go ahead and just give you a little bit of a agenda overview. We're going to touch on Columbia Climate School, kind of a little bit of our history and where we sit within the overarching Columbia University. We'll also discuss our student profile. So the students that are enrolling specifically for the fall 2026, which we're really excited to share. And then we're going to perform more of a deep dive into the degree programs specifically. We'll begin with the MS in Climate Finance program. Fun fact, the highest number of programs of interest for this specific virtual session was MS in Climate Finance, followed by the MA Climate and Society, and then the MS in Climate. So we'll go over all three of our programs. We'll also touch on dual degree opportunities specifically embedded within the MS in Climate program. Of course, detail our professional development opportunities through our career management office, financial aid, and then my favorite section, the application process. The application is not open yet, but will be opening in early September. So before I did dive into all of that, though, I did promise you a current student perspective. And so Peyton Hernandez is a current student here at Columbia Climate School. She is enrolled in our Master of Arts in Climate and Society program, and she is actually graduating at the end of this summer semester. So she went through the entire last academic year with us, which we're thrilled about. She's also an admissions intern with Columbia. We worked closely with Damaris and myself, so we really do appreciate Peyton. And I will now allow Peyton to kind of introduce herself. And Peyton, if you could share your academic background, kind of the work and internships you were doing before joining Columbia Climate School, and also I always like to say your climate story. And just so you guys know, Peyton's going to introduce herself, but at certain key moments in the presentation, she'll hop back on to share her experiences in electives, the climate core, her capstone experience. So I'll pause there. Peyton, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Alfred. Nice to meet you all. My name is Peyton. As Alfred mentioned, I'm currently in the program, finishing up in just a few weeks, actually, which is really exciting. But I'm originally from Tampa, Florida. I went to the University of Florida for undergrad and studied sustainability and event management there. And I graduated last May. I went straight to Columbia after graduating from undergrad, which is there's definitely a good handful of us, but not necessarily the typical route. But it's been super exciting. I've had a really great time at Columbia. I really got into climate and sustainability because honestly, a lot of the climate strikes were happening um, around the world when I was in high school. And when I got to choosing a major, I found out I could study sustainability, and it just made perfect sense in my head. And I just stuck with it. So I'm really grateful that. Um, it became something that I could study right at the perfect time when I was entering undergrad. And yeah, I've just kept it up from there. If you've ever heard me speak at one of these before, you know that I have been specifically focusing on sustainability in sports while at Columbia, but have definitely explored all of my options through electives and the core courses, which I'll talk about later. But before coming, as I mentioned, my degree, but I did a lot of environmental education and community engagement and outreach. So that intersection with sustainability is really where my passions lie. So I'll touch on my Columbia experience more coming up, but that's just an intro to me.
Thank you, Peyton. Yeah, stay tuned. Peyton's coming back, I promise. Um, in terms of now just kind of giving you a little bit more background on Columbia Climate School, it's always helpful to anchor everybody on Columbia University itself. So Columbia University is the fifth oldest institution in the United States, the oldest in the state of New York. And when you refer to Columbia University, you're referring to what many would be considered a blueprint institution for research universities. Underneath the Columbia University umbrella are over 20 distinct graduate and undergraduate schools, the majority of them being graduate professional schools. So Columbia University, you can think of Columbia Business School, for example, we'll touch on today, Columbia School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, Columbia's Graduate School of Architecture, Planning and Preservation, Columbia Law School, the list goes on. The newest school within Columbia University, which was formally announced in 2020 and launched in 2021, is the Climate School. But one thing I like to emphasize when we're talking about the newness of the climate school is actually we were built on a very strong foundation of climate and sustainability research and the work that was going on at the university itself. So we actually our foundation evolved from what was called the Earth Institute, which was the largest research center at Columbia University. From there, we became Columbia Climate School in 2021. The first degree program with which we offered was the MA in Climate and Society, and now we've since multiplied. We have now 3 degree programs. But in terms of our offerings, and our ethos, the world requires knowledgeable leaders to work with businesses, communities, governments, and civil society to address the climate crisis. Columbia Climate School's graduate degree programs and other learning opportunities provide an interdisciplinary knowledge base for climate leaders with diverse interests and backgrounds. Interdisciplinary is truly a key word. It's kind of a cornerstone to what Columbia Climate School is. Interdisciplinary is not only in our curriculum, it's in our faculty's expertise, and it's in our overarching student learning community. There is no cookie cutter Columbia Climate School student, and there's no cookie cutter Columbia Climate School faculty. In fact, Damaris, if you could do me a favor and also highlight the faculty directory, you'll notice our faculty are engineers, our atmospheric scientists, our trained attorneys, our policy analysts, our geoscientists. It's incredible just how many disciplines are represented in our faculty talent. And that has to be the case. Why? Because climate as a topic touches everything. So every aspect and facet of society is touched by climate, whether it's through the sciences or the social sciences. So again, what I want to emphasize is interdisciplinary is a key function of Columbia Climate School, and you as a prospective graduate student should be also embracing that. In terms of the learning community joining us for the fall 2025, this is representing all three of our programs. So across the MA Climate Society, the MS in Climate Finance program, as well as the MS in Climate program, we're going to be welcoming a little north of over 200 students to our learning community. Of those students, about 60% of them are international students. They represent 37 different countries of citizenship, which we are thrilled about. This is the most diverse in terms of global representation of any of our incoming learning communities. 20 states are represented among our US domestic students. And another percentage that we're very proud of is approximately 19% of the incoming students are the first in their family to attend a college or university. We classify those as first generation college students. To provide another data point, the average age in the learning community is around 26 years old. You'll see the pie graph on the right. I mentioned again the word interdisciplinary, and I said there is no cookie cut Columbia Climate School student, and that's the truth, especially when you're looking at the majors. So around 2/3 of our students are coming to the program with social science backgrounds. And we do lump those students with social science backgrounds. We also, for those of you that, again, I keep highlighting climate finance because I noticed so many of you are interested in it, but let's say you did study a business degree for undergrad, we would also lump that in for the social science pool. And then about the remaining 2/3, or forgive me, 1/3, are classified as natural sciences. So forgive me if I got that mixed up. 2/3 are social sciences, and then about 1/3 are the natural sciences. And again, that could be, for example, if you're an environmental science major or a chemistry major, we would lump that in that section. So let's now touch on the three distinct degree programs. The first one I'm going to discuss with you is the MS in Climate Finance program. This is the newest program. Again, we're welcoming our first cohort in the fall of 2025. So literally September 2nd is the first day of class, and we're so thrilled to see this cohort join us. In terms of this degree program, it is a 1-year STEM designated 39 credit hour professional degree offered by Columbia Climate School in close collaboration with Columbia Business School. This interdisciplinary degree program integrates both climate science and the fundamental financial management practices that equip students with financial decision-making skills to respond to climate change. It's very important to emphasize that this is a Columbia Climate School degree, again, in close collaboration with Columbia Business School. This is not a dual degree program. So when you graduate from this program, it's a Columbia Climate School degree. But what do we mean by a close collaboration with Columbia Business School? Well, it's worth highlighting Columbia Business School in this case because they are playing a critical role in the execution of this degree program. So in terms of the degree and the shaping of it, this collaboration combines the expertise of Columbia Business School and Climate School, and specifically in finance with cutting edge climate research pertaining to future leaders to address the financial challenges of climate change. The program integrates both schools, leveraging Columbia Business School's decades of leadership in sustainable business practices and climate innovation to equip students with the necessary skills for impactful careers in climate finance. The courses that you will be taking at Columbia Business School are not kind of newly created courses. These are courses that they've been teaching and have been baked into the Columbia Business School learning community for years. So it's very important to note that this is something that they are also steeped in when it comes to finance and climate finance specifically. And you're going to be, and Columbia Climate School is fortunate enough to partner with them from that standpoint. In terms of the kind of overarching themes that students should be able to understand when graduating from this program, number one is you're going to understand the science of climate change and its varying economic, social, and environmental impacts. It's very important to highlight that. All of our programs are going to do that for you. What I always say is when somebody stops you on the street and says, do you believe in climate change? And your response is yes. And then the follow-up question is, why do you believe in it? You will have the why from Columbia Climate School. And it's going to teach you the why from a sophisticated scientific lens, but also how to communicate that scientific lens to different constituents. Maybe it's an individual that's the CEO of an organization, or maybe it's somebody, for example, that's a policy analyst or works in a in a K-12 education landscape. Now I'm getting away from climate finance saying that, but again, the Columbia Climate School core curriculum is going to teach you that why and how to communicate that why. You'll also translate the implications of climate research into appropriate financial and business language and decision making, assess risks and opportunities associated with climate change. Risk is a key area when you're thinking about climate finance. In fact, it's one of your core business school courses, climate risk, so stay tuned. And then you'll also evaluate the financial tools and strategies that can be applied to accelerate the energy transition and to finance critical investments in mitigation and adaptation. This is a very quick aerial shot of what to expect while you're enrolled in this program. The MS in Climate Finance, again, is 39 credit hours. It's a 3-semester program. It exclusively is a full-time program. And it's cohort driven. So you're starting and finishing with the same group of students. In terms of the credit hour breakdown of the 39 credits, 24 of those credits are going to be made up of core courses across Columbia Climate School and Columbia Business School. And then the 15 remaining credit hours are going to be made up of electives. The electives are going to be, again, embedded within either Columbia Climate School or Columbia Business School. If you were to say within the portfolio, Alfred, which of these programs is the most prescribed? I would say the MS in Climate Finance program. It's going to give you will know exactly which courses, for example, you will be allowed to take at Columbia Business School specifically. Columbia Climate School, we're going to have a lot of flexibility in terms of the electives that you could enroll in. But at Columbia Business School, you will have your Columbia Business School core courses, which I'll touch on shortly. And then also there are going to be a listing of electives that are available to you and appropriate for a climate finance student. In terms of the climate core, I wanted to note, so again, this is embedded within your 24 credits of core courses. You're going to be exploring dynamics of climate variability and change, climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, and international climate finance. What frequently comes up is the idea of climate justice. We do have a core climate justice course for 2 of our other degree programs, and we'll touch on that shortly. But one thing I always like to stress, especially for climate finance prospective students that ask about climate justice is interwoven throughout our core curriculum. It's going to be touched on in climate change mitigation and adaptation, but especially in international climate finance. I'll also note Professor Lisa Sachs is the the faculty director of the climate finance program, and she will be the one teaching climate change mitigation for all Columbia Climate School students. She will also be teaching international climate finance. In terms of the Columbia Business School Finance Core, the core courses, you're going to notice we are highlighting the credit hour distribution. You'll notice that we highlighted the credit hour distribution for the Climate Core, which are 3 credits across each course. For the Finance Core, you'll notice some of the courses are 1.5 credits, and one of them in particular is a 3 credit. The 1.5 credits are offered over a half semester, so Columbia Business School has a slightly different cadence in terms of the length of their coursework. But I'll also just highlight, you'll see some of the courses have an asterisk next to them. The courses with an asterisk are courses that indicate exemption exams are available at Columbia Business School. So those of you that are joining us, and let's say you've been working in, corporate finance at JP Morgan, or you have a background in venture capital, and you specifically have an undergraduate degree in finance, for example, and maybe taking corporate finance may not be as challenging for you. Columbia Business School does offer exemption exams for 3 of these finance core courses. If you were admitted to our program in the summer months, these exemption exams would be made available to you. They're completely optional. You don't have to take the exemption exams whatsoever. So I want to emphasize that as well. And the other element I need to stress when it comes to exemption exams are not reducing the number of credits for the MS in Climate Finance program. In fact, what the exemption exams are doing are just affording you an opportunity to take additional electives. So that's something else really important to stress. I also want to note that final semester, you will be completing your electives at Columbia Climate School and the MS in Climate Finance program, but you'll also be exploring a summer practicum. So specifically the MS in Climate Finance program, you have an option of either pursuing a capstone workshop or alternatively an internship. A capstone workshop is a live consulting project with an external client. Each workshop partners with a team of about 6 graduate students with a faculty advisor, and the goal is to provide clients with innovative analysis and practical recommendations, while finance students gain experience by working in truly real world problem. I want to just note Peyton Hernandez, who's in the MA Climate and Society program. She's currently enrolled in a capstone project. Um, Obviously, the capstone projects for climate finance are going to be very climate finance thematic, but shortly, actually, yes, Peyton just came off. Peyton, if I could ask you, could you share a little bit about the client that you're working with? So forgive me, I know we're highlighting climate finance now, but I'd love to learn just a little bit more about the client that you're working with currently and the problem that you're just any experience in climate finance. And actually, while you're doing that, Damaris, who's working the Q&A, Damaris, if you wouldn't mind copying and pasting the link to our capstones from last year. So we do have a public facing website. If you wanted to see which clients we worked with last year, the projects, and specifically the presentations, that is available. And one of them was a climate finance related project. For those of you that's specific to finance, forgive me. Peyton, please share your experience.
Yeah, of course. My capstone definitely is not very climate finance related, but it's still really awesome. And you never know which one you might end up in. So, my capstone is with the Climate Imaginarium. It's a nonprofit organization housed on Governor's Island, which is just off the bottom tip of Manhattan. And it was founded actually about 2 years ago by an alum from the climate school. And they still stay in very close contact and work with a lot of other alums from the program, which is really awesome. But the Imaginarium is focused on building a space to talk about climate emotion. So they host climate cafes, which is at least a national organization. It might be international now. And as well as hosting a space to create art and community just based off of climate. And so they have a lot of art exhibits, film screenings, book talks, just general community meetings. And Governor's Island is becoming a space for climate innovation funded by New York City and a couple different entities throughout the city. And so we are helping the Imaginarium apply for a grant from the New York City Economic Development Corporation. It's a really long acronym, but yeah, so we're helping them to apply for a grant to be funded as a permanent beautified space in New York City. And so everyone in my capstone project is kind of getting to work on their own individual project. So I'm personally planning a market with artists that showcase upcycled goods and just the power of repurposed products. And through my individual project and others, so there's someone on my team working on a podcast for the Imaginarium, someone else who's bringing Climate Cafe to Shanghai, um, just to give a few examples. And through all of our experiences, we're learning about the capacity that the Climate Imaginarium has as of right now, as well as where there's room for growth, helping them build out strategies for the future. So I'm holding like a small pilot event for this market, but then writing them a business plan with advice and feedback from artists for the future. And so it's all about really just like getting into the organization, seeing what they're capable of right now, and giving them recommendations for the future and helping them apply for that grant. So hopefully I explained that pretty well. But yeah, it's been a really fun opportunity and I'm working with like other students from my cohort. So it's really enjoyable.
Awesome, Peyton. Yeah, so yeah, Peyton's is a great example, especially for like an MA Climate Society student. We have quite a few students with humanities backgrounds that I'm sure would be like really jazzed about that opportunity. Again, for speaking from a climate finance lens, you would have a very different type of capstone, obviously, but definitely check out the link that Damaris shared. I believe that there was a climate finance project last year with the MTA, and again, all of your thematic kind of coursework for the capstone would be climate finance related, for those of you interested. I'm also seeing some really, really good questions in the Q&A. I promise I'm getting to those. We'll get to those shortly. I just want to touch on the internship opportunity for the MS in climate finance is also an option. We have some really ambitious students enrolling in the climate finance program for the fall 2020, specifically for the fall 25. In fact, one of them already has an internship secured with Citi, which is really exciting. So this is an option, and the internship would be obviously an immersive experience that takes place over the summer in a climate finance related role. The internship should be based in New York City, by the way. I want to emphasize that, and can be either paid or unpaid, offer students the opportunity to apply their academic learning to real world challenges, gaining practical insights into the financial strategies driving climate action. While many internships will be based in the tri-state area, forgive me, remote opportunities are also permissible. I believe that's a case by case. And then students will source their own internship opportunities, but will have full support and resources from the career management team throughout the process. So that's something else that I really want to emphasize is that we have a phenomenal career management team. And in fact, we are growing at Columbia Climate School. So the career management team is going to have a dedicated resource for climate finance, that particular program as well. I want to also just note some of you asked such great questions about who is the incoming class for climate finance. And so the inaugural cohort, approximately 35% of the students are entering directly from undergrad, while about 65% of the students are entering from full-time work experience. In terms of the sectors represented, climate finance, when it was originally designed, I think it was designed with private sector focus in mind. But since the leadership of Professor Lisa Sachs, it's definitely expanded, and there's really, I would say, a robust community now of our incoming cohort that specifically have more public and NGO space focus. So it's about 63% private sector, and the remaining pie is going to be private and NGO. In terms of the demographics, 32% of the students are US citizens, 68% foreign nationals. We have some great balance in our cohort with nearly split between male to female. It's incredibly global in terms of the learning community. 21 countries alone are represented in the climate finance program. The average age is also 26 and 49 distinct majors. And then if you said to me, well, Alfred, what organizations for the students that are coming to us with having work experience, again, you can see kind of that sector distribution play out, which I think is really dynamic. It's ranging from Bank America to JP Morgan. Venture capital firms are listed here, but also organizations like the Ford Foundation, multilateral organizations like the World Bank and the United Nations. So it's a really, really dynamic and exciting learning community. And this first cohort, we're super, super thrilled to be welcoming. Orientation's August 25th and September 2nd is the first day of class. So we're very excited about them. Now, I'm just going to pause really quick and take a quick peek at the, actually, you know what? Let me pause because I know Peyton has a hard stop. So let me keep going. We're now going to touch on the MA Climate Society program. So the MA Climate and Society program is our largest degree program in terms of learning community and also the oldest degree program. Fun fact, it was actually launched in 2005, and then it migrated to Columbia Climate School from the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. This is a 35 credit hour STEM designated program, also delivered in 1 year, although we do have a part-time learning option, which I'll briefly discuss. In terms of this program, it trains professionals and academics to understand and address the impacts of climate variability and change on society and the environment. Through classes and research, students gain knowledge in the physical and social sciences and the humanities as it relates to climate. Again, this is a very brief aerial shot of what the MA Climate and Society program looks like for specifically a full-time student. You always begin in the fall. You'll have your Climate Core and the Applied Climate 1 course, which is also a part of the Climate Core. The spring semester continuation, where you continue your Climate Core and also begin exploring your elective journey. And then finally, your summer semester, where you continue electives and exclusively have a capstone project in the MA Climate and Society. So that experience that Peyton highlighted is exactly what you would be experiencing in the MA Climate and Society, pursuing a capstone while also managing an elective course load. In terms of the MA Climate and Society program, um, again, we have a set of core courses that significantly overlaps with the MS in Climate Finance program, although there's some additions. So in this 35 credit hour program, again, roughly 23 of the credits are going to be, forgive me, yes, 23 of the credits are going to be core courses. They include climate justice theory and practice, climate change mitigation and adaptation. These are, of course, the two kind of foundations and to addressing climate change and the challenges and opportunities that come with it. We also have the dynamics of climate variability and change course, which is largely a physics class where you're exploring the kind of the physics behind climate change. There's a quantitative methods for climate applications course. This is going to be largely a climate data class utilizing the computer program language R. So I always call it your climate jobs course because it's going to teach you how to understand and interpret large climate data sets and make decisions based off of those. You'll also have a social applied climate 1 and 2 course that was in that previous slide. And then finally, as a part of your elective journey, you're going to have what's called a social science selective. So at least one of those courses is going to be made up of a social science selective course, and there's around 5 different courses to choose from. I can't emphasize enough, this is just a preview of these degree programs. We have dedicated information sessions for each degree program, so definitely register for one of our upcoming MA Climate and Society info sessions to get an even deeper dive into into this curriculum. I'll briefly also mention that we do have a part-time option for the MA Climate and Society where students are able to pursue part-time enrollment. I will say it's a very intimate learning community. Every single year we have fewer than 10 students that are pursuing this program part-time. And if you did pursue it part-time, essentially you would be, instead of being a 1-year program, you would be pursuing it as a 2-year program. Forgive me, let me pause there because I love to hear Peyton's experience. Peyton, if you could share with us kind of your experiences in the climate core and kind of the challenge and rigor. For example, dynamics is a notorious class or quant, and you didn't necessarily come to our program with a STEM background, but how did you find navigating the core curriculum?
Yeah, I chose to come to the climate school mainly because I really appreciated the balance between the core and the electives. So I wanted to be pushed out of my comfort zone with the core classes and take some more heavy climate science classes. Because, as Alfred mentioned, my degree was in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. I really didn't have a heavy STEM background. And so that's what I was looking for in the core. But I really enjoyed it. Mitigation was fantastic. Lisa Sachs was our professor, so we got a glimpse into that. Um, and her teaching, she was amazing. Honestly, all the professors were really amazing, made themselves so available. Everyone comes from really different backgrounds, and I think it challenges everyone in different ways, no matter what their background is. So even if you do have a strong climate science background, I think there's definitely still ways that you'd be like learning something new and learning with others with different backgrounds and working together on projects and everything. And obviously, we have some incredible professors who always have something new to teach us. My one of my favorites actually ended up being the quant class, which is really shocking. I think that was the one I was most scared about because I'm not the best with statistics and I had no idea how to code before coming to the climate school. And we had to learn R coding, but honestly, our lab TA was absolutely fantastic. And I ended up really enjoying learning how to make my own graphs and then reading them myself. And at the end, it culminated into a research project where um, my group we every group got to choose basically anything they wanted, any correlation related um to climate science. So my group ended up choosing um to do the correlation between extreme heat and then violent crimes. But you can also go in more of like a food systems route. A lot of people did like asthma rates. So you can really take it wherever you want. But yeah, I was just really that class made me really proud of myself, because I didn't know how to do pretty much anything in it before going into it, and then I ended up having a lot of fun with it. And every week I'd send my friends not at Columbia like, here's what I made today with my coding skills. So it was really fun. But overall, can't say enough about how great the professors were. They make themselves really available. Every class has multiple TAs. We had like 4 per class. So pretty much any day of the week, someone's there to help you, no matter how much you might be struggling or how little you might be struggling. Um, it's really manageable, and I learned a lot, and I'm really, really glad that I pushed myself to take the classes. So yeah.
That's awesome, Peyton. Thank you for that feedback. In terms of now just quickly jumping to the MS in Climate program. And so, one other element I'll just say about the MA Climate and Society. Well, actually, you know what? Pause. I'm going to talk about elective shortly, which is both thematic for climate, MS Climate and MA Climate Society. So moving on to the MS in Climate program, which is our also a new degree program here at Columbia Climate School. This is a 2-year program. We're welcoming our first cohort in fall 2025 as well, September 2nd, first day of class. So excited. This is a 50 credit hour program. That's a professional degree that gives graduates from diverse backgrounds an in-depth training in specific areas of climate expertise and prepares them to be climate leaders at community, state, national, and international levels. You'll notice that there is significant overlap between the MA Climate and Society and the MS in Climate. And one thing I would argue is the MS in Climate program affords you that opportunity to dive deeper into a specific subject within the climate space. And you'll see that when we talk about the second credential embedded within the MS in Climate, which are the advanced certificates. So this is a snapshot of the MS in Climate program and its timeline. In the fall, you have the Climate Core, which is nearly identical to the MA Climate and Society in many respects. Again, Climate 1 and 2. You'll begin in the spring with your elective courses and also start taking certificate requirement courses. In the summer semester, you're not a student at Columbia Climate School specifically, but you would be pursuing an internship. So you're not taking classes, but you would be pursuing an internship or applied learning experience. And then in the fall semester, between your first and second year, your second fall, forgive me, you're going to continue the climate course. So essentially wrapping that up, you will, continue your electives. You'll be continuing your certificate requirements, and your final semester in the MS in Climate program is your second spring semester, where you are wrapping up your certificate. And of course, you will explore a capstone experience. Again, I want to emphasize the link that Damaris Diaz shared in the chat box can be helpful just to see what capstone clients we've partnered with in the past. In terms of the climate core for the MS in Climate, what we just discussed with Peyton, again, nearly identical courses with exception to the following. Instead of doing a social science selective, climate core courses in the MS in Climate program actually have a quantitative selective. So you would, in addition to exploring quantitative methods for climate applications, that computer language R course, you're actually going to be taking a quantitative selective, and it's going to be largely driven based on the advanced certificate with which you choose. So advanced quantitative methods for climate, this is for students that are pursuing our climate systems analytics advanced certificate. If you're interested in food systems instead or disaster management, you have some more options available to you, like GIS for climate data analysis, or machine learning for climate science and environmental sustainability, or even spatial analysis for food security. So again, quantitative selective as a part of the MS in Climate program is unique. I'll just briefly now touch on those advanced certificates. So it's important to note that the advanced certificates are mandatory within the MS in Climate program. However, at the time of your admissions application, you're just going to select the advanced certificate that you're most interested in, and you don't officially declare an advanced certificate until your first semester while enrolled in the MS in Climate program. So the advanced certificates include climate systems analytics, climate disaster management, and climate and food systems. Does anybody want to guess the most popular of those 3 advanced certificates in the Q&A? Feel free to take the guess. And I promise I'm going to get to these are phenomenal questions, guys. So stay tuned. Food systems, interesting guess. Interesting. Anybody else? Mary threw out climate systems analytics. Alex also food systems. That's so interesting. Now, Damaris and I are gonna have a comment about food systems. So, what's so I'll share the answer. It's climate systems analytics was the most popular of the certificates. But what's so interesting, I I knew nothing about food systems before joining the climate school, and what's fascinating is how impactful food systems are when it comes to climate change. In fact, if 1/3 of the carbon released each year is related to our food system. So um, these are really interesting and exciting advanced certificates. In fact, Columbia Climate School, every year we're evolving, and I've been told there is a plan to potentially launch a fourth advanced certificate in the coming months. So definitely stay tuned and join our next few sessions because I might have an exciting update as it relates to another advanced certificate. Just to briefly note, the MS in Climate Finance, I mentioned it's 50 credit hours. The core courses are again 23 credit hours. Again, regardless of the advanced certificate you choose, 23 credits are core courses. 18 credits of the 50 credits will be made up of a certificate, and then 9 credits are going to be made up of electives. And then finally, for this MS in climate, we also have 2 dual degree programs that we partnered with. These are really exciting opportunities. So in lieu of doing an advanced certificate, you could potentially pursue a dual program. Now, one thing I want to note about the dual programs is that they're both going to be completed in the same time you would complete the MS in climate. So both of these options would be completed in 2 years, except you're graduating with 2 distinct degree programs with 2 distinct alumni networks. So from that standpoint, it's very exciting. But they do require separate applications. So let's say you're applying to the MS in Climate program. In addition to applying to us, but you're also interested in carbon management, you would apply to both the MS in Climate program at Columbia Climate School and also complete an application at the School of Engineering for the MS in Carbon Management. So both of these opportunities in terms of the MS in Architecture and Urban Design and the MS in Carbon Management require applying to those professional schools as well. If you're admitted to both programs, you would then notify the Columbia Climate School Office of Admission which program you plan to join first with. And then you would defer your offer of admission to the other school. In terms of the GSAP program, the Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation, that program has a summer start. So for example, if you started with us in fall 2026 in the MS in Climate program, you would continue with us in the spring semester, and then you would matriculate into the MS in Architecture and Urban Design in the summer of 2027. And that's a 3-semester program where you finish it in May of the following year. And then for Columbia Engineering, again, if you would start with us in the fall, you would continue with us in the spring, and then you could take the summer off, for example, and then start with them in the following fall, interestingly. Now I want to talk about electives, and actually, Peyton, if you could again pop back on, because I'm going to grill you about your elective journeys. But one thing to note is that electives have been extremely dynamic at Columbia Climate School. I joined in 2022, and that academic year, you will be happy to know there were 3 electives offered. And now we had well over 20 electives this academic year offered at Columbia Climate School. These electives are extremely interdisciplinary as you want them to be. I will say all programs across the 3 program portfolio do require that you take at least 1 Columbia Climate School elective in order to graduate, which you will. But the electives are extremely diverse. And one thing I like to note is they're also extremely thoughtful when they roll out electives. So this past year, for example, and again, I'm just giving you an example from last year, our faculty are very thoughtful about thinking about the mix of electives and how the electives complement one another. So even if you're not interested in climate finance, these courses might be of interest to you, for example. So Financing Renewable Energy was an elective course offered last year. And that course, you can think of it as a private sector type course. You're examining the ingredients necessary to finance renewable projects, to make it economic, including exploring different forms of capital available to successfully finance a project, along with analyzing those revenue models. And then the second course that was offered was Climate Policy and Investment, which you can think of as more of a public sector lens course. Then this course explores the many interrelated challenges to investing in the energy transition and to see why the big picture is important to really understanding policies or practices at their granular level. So those, I always like to stress that the curriculum that we're offering complement one another, and the electives are extremely diverse, and we're only adding electives every single year, excitedly. And then I'm going to have Peyton talk in 1 second, but I think there's something else that's really important to stress when it comes to electives. And this slide is really, this is specifically not for the MS in Climate Finance program. I mentioned that program is fairly prescriptive in terms of your two schools are either going to be Columbia Climate School and Columbia Business School for electives, but cross-registration is very popular among MA Climate and Society students and MS in Climate students in particular. And one thing I like to note is you can cross, as long as it's a graduate level course at Columbia University and they allow cross registration, you could potentially cross register, whether it be at the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, the School of Professional Studies houses our sustainability management program, which is extremely popular, the School of International and Public Affairs, Columbia Engineering, Columbia Law School, the list goes on, Mailman School of Public Health. So let me pause there. And Peyton, could you share with me from an MA Climate and Society student how you approach the electives, as I know that they're quite flexible? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
For sure. So I took a good mix of mostly climate school electives and SUMA sustainability management electives. Um, Sort of just based off of my particular interests. I will say a lot of my friends took um SUSI, so sustainability science, journalism, teachers college classes. So the options are pretty endless, to be honest. My particular favorites in the climate school, I took a food systems class, honestly, just to learn more. I just really liked the professor and wanted to learn more with my extra time that I had on my schedule. I also took this summer, I took building equitable community partnerships with Jeff Schlegelmelch. He's the director of the National Center for Disaster Preparedness and a really awesome professor at Columbia. I took the class just because I wanted to take class with him. So I tried to do things that were really particular to my niche interests and that expanded my horizons. So with the food systems and the disaster risk reduction related classes, I was really just trying to learn more in general and take advantage of being in the climate school during the time that I had here. Some of my favorites were climate change law and policy. I took that with Professor Sheila Foster. She's fantastic. It was basically a law class, but through the climate school, so it wasn't for law students. And then in the spring semester, Michael Gerard, who also teaches at the law school, taught the same exact class. But both administered through the climate school so that we had first access to it and that it was best suited to climate students and not just law students. Um, so that was really cool. I really enjoyed that class. It was a very international perspective. Um, I also really enjoyed social impact, which is a MA Climate and Society Social Science selective. Would really recommend that class. It also gave me a little bit of a taste of climate finance towards the end of class, which I did not have much experience in. So the first half of the class was really like case studies based and a mix between social impact and environmental impact. And the second half really went into our professor's research more on climate finance.
And
Um,
Peyton, was that Caroline Flammer?
yes,
That was, yes,
Caroline.
Caroline Flammer. If you guys want to reference the faculty directory as well. Yeah.
And then um, in SUMA, I took corporate sustainability reporting. I feel like there's just a lot of jobs in ESG right now, and I thought I'd try my hand at it. And that was a cool class because we created an actual ESG report for a real business. And then I also got to take my favorite class, sustainability in sports, of course, because that's what I'm particularly interested in. But even though I'm not a SUMA student, I have been working with the professor from that class since that time. So honestly, there's really great opportunities no matter if a professor is necessarily listed under the climate school or not. The climate school is very connected with all of the schools. We're partner programs with SUMA, SEPA, and so those professors make themselves just as available to you all as the climate school professors do. And I know I'll stay in contact with them. They've served as references for me. And a lot of students, build a close relationship with at least one of their professors. So I highly recommend just going to office hours, uh, sticking around. I basically just bugged my sports professor until now we're just like have almost like a colleague relationship, and they've been a really big help in my job search and gone to conferences with them, and a lot of people just continue work that they did in their class with the professors. So genuinely just can't recommend highly enough getting to know your professors. They really want the best for you. And just exploring a class that maybe you didn't think you'd be interested in before. I really, really enjoyed the classes that maybe weren't my particular interest, but that were just available through the climate school. Like, take advantage of that. You're here for a reason. Um, so yeah, just explore. That's my biggest piece of advice. But um yeah, I tried really hard to do a wide range of different types of classes. Um and I would tell anyone to do the same.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the potpourri style. And then, hey, some of our students are very like specific and they know exactly. The nice thing about the MA Climate Society is it allows that exploration, I think, which is brilliant. In terms of now, I'll just quickly pivot and Peyton, do you need to head out now? Should we look at the questions that might be more related? Or I
I
know,
do need to head
Pey-
out. I'm
okay,
sorry.
understood. Peyton's going to capstone, everybody. So this is
I have to
important.
go to my capstone meeting.
Well, listen, Peyton, thank you. I so appreciate it. And again, round of applause for Peyton. Okay, thank you so much. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Alfred. Thanks, everyone.
Um, Let me now touch on career resources and professional development. And I promise I'm getting to all your questions. So, career and resources and professional development, we have a dedicated career management office, as I mentioned earlier. In fact, um, if, if you wouldn't mind, Damaris, also copying and pasting the career management office. Some of your questions you were asking about career outcomes on the career management website. If you scroll to the very bottom, you can see a pie chart that indicates um, the two most recent graduating classes, what sectors that they ended up entering, the job titles and the organizations that hired them. Definitely explore that. What's really important though about career outcomes that I need to emphasize is if you're interested in the MS in Climate Finance or the MS in Climate program in particular, remember these programs are brand new. We are welcoming our first cohorts this coming fall 2025. So I don't have specific career outcomes for those degree programs, but we have a runway with the MA Climate and Society. And because the MA Climate and Society is so just interdisciplinary in nature, we do have students that matriculated to that program that might have gone on to climate finance related lens or perhaps work now in a food system capacity or in disaster management. So definitely take a look at the career outcomes. I still think it can be informative. Again, the career management office is phenomenal, and they have corporate site visits that they host each semester. We host a sustainable skills seminar if you're interested in, for example, lead certification or sustainability consulting. The All Ivy Environmental and Sustainable Career Fair is hosted every February. It brings nearly 100 employers to the Columbia University campus. They also host mock interviews, and they have an exclusive job board posting. Um, One of the questions had asked about mentorship, in fact, if I recall correctly. One thing I like to note, you are assigned an academic advisor here at Columbia Climate School. So it's a faculty advisor, but we also have a alumni mentorship program at Columbia Climate School. And you might be surprised to hear that because you might say, but it's such a new school. How does it work? Our mentorship program is actually open to multiple programs across Columbia University. There's titled specifically partner programs. So alumni of the MPA and Environmental Science Policy program at CEPA, alumni at the MS and Sustainability Management program at SPS, alumni of the MA Climate and Society. So that alumni mentorship program I've heard is a phenomenal resource. At least two of our current admissions interns participated in it, and that is something that's going to be available to you and hosted through the career management team at Columbia Climate School. This is to give you a quick snapshot of the 2022-2023 year. Again, this is strictly MA Climate and Society outcomes, but you can see the private sector represented 31%, public sector 21%, nonprofit NGO 27%. And then you can see an evolution for the 2024 outcome. You can see the private sector interestingly grew, and then nonprofit went to 34%. These are some of organizations where our alumni work: Nature Conservancy, World Bank. Funny enough, these are some organizations that incoming MS in climate finance students work. We've also had students at Boston Consulting Group, in local and state governments like the city of Los Angeles. We've also had students at UNICEF and students with journalism backgrounds. I saw a question from a journalist. So we have somebody at CBS News as an on-air climate specialist. And then for the most recent graduating class, the 2024, these are some recent job outcomes. So students, for example, working in ESG and SEG reporting at Autodesk, or working at the UN Global Impact, or working at Carbone as a research origination analyst. And again, this is just a kind of a quick snapshot of where some of our students have gone on to. This is the most recent, as I mentioned, graduating class, the students that graduated in May, or forgive me, in October 2024. So now I'm going to quickly pivot to financial aid at Columbia Climate School. First and foremost, all of you joining me in July, when the application opens in September, you're going to want to take advantage of the priority deadline, which is January 15th. 2026. All of you will take advantage of the priority deadline. Why? Because if you're interested in a merit-based climate school scholarship, your chances of receiving one increase significantly if you apply by the priority deadline, which is January 15th, 2026. So those merit-based scholarships, they really range. They range anywhere from $10,000 to upwards of $40,000. It does vary between the programs, but again, and our programs do have different tuition rates, I should note, but again, those scholarships are automatic in your acceptance letter, and a little over 60% of our enrolling students this year received a merit-based scholarship. So I don't want you to feel like they're rare, you have a low chance. If you apply by the priority deadline, you could be quite competitive. So again, climate school merit-based scholarships. We also offer what's called a Dean Scholarship. The Dean Scholarship is exclusively for MS and climate students, and it's in total $50,000 across the 2 years. So in total, you will receive $50,000 scholarship if you receive a Dean Scholarship. We had 5 Dean Scholarships distributions this year. We also have a CUNY Scholarship. So any of you joining us today, if you are joining us and you graduated from one of the CUNY schools like City University, Baruch, Hunter, John Jay, we have a CUNY scholarship opportunity that you should definitely check out. You'll automatically be considered for that. You do have to graduate within the last 5 years to be considered for that scholarship. We had 2 students that got a CUNY scholarship this year. We also have the Stanley Park Climate Finance Scholarship, which we have a dedicated slide to, so stay tuned. That's exclusively for the MS in Climate Finance program. And then finally, we have external fellowship directories. And in fact, Damaris, if you could highlight and link the tuition and financial aid webpage, because the external fellowship directories are publicly on that website. We always recommend, if you're interested in external fellowships, you should do your research now. Don't wait until you're admitted to a school and then say, do you have any external fellowship applications you recommend? Because oftentimes those applications have ended. So now is the time to do an external fellowship research deep dive. And then, of course, federal and private loans. And our office works with Student Financial Services, and specifically the Student Financial Planning Office, to assist you through navigating both the federal loans and private loans. In terms of Stanley Park Climate Finance Scholarship, this application is separate from the admissions application and exclusive to the MS in Climate Finance program. There are 3 scholarships that are dedicated, covering the full tuition. So the MS in Climate Finance program is $116,000 in total. It would cover the tuition if you received a specific Stanley Park Climate Finance Scholarship. In terms of this application, you have to apply by the priority deadline of January 15th to be considered for the Stanley Park Climate Finance application as well. It's for full-time students, of course. There is a demonstrated financial need component in that application, and the program's themes are the intention of contributing to public and nonprofit sectors, and in particular, those from countries with emerging and developing economies. So those that's to share with you kind of fit for the program, and you should have a deep interest in addressing the distortions of climate finance and promoting solutions to substantially increase climate investments. So that is the Stanley Park Climate Finance Scholarship. It's a separate application. I'm now going to touch on the application process. So the application process for the MS in Climate and the MA Climate and Society is identical. So let me just go through those two programs first. First and foremost, we have a priority deadline, January 15th, 2026. All of you joining me today because you are fantastic prospective students and you are literally logged in the middle of July for a graduate program info session, you should be taking advantage of the priority deadline. The final deadline, so let's say you can't apply by then, we have a final deadline of March 1st, 2026. In terms of the application, it's a holistic review process. This is not a X GPA times Y standardized test score equals up or down decision. But I did notice some of you asked in the chat box about prerequisites for programs. I will say the MS in Climate program in particular, you'll notice on the website, we highlight it's recommended that you have like one level of a statistics, college level statistics course and a calculus course. But I want to just note that that is not mandatory within our admissions committee. So for example, let's say you have more of um, a humanities background and you haven't been exposed to quantitative coursework in some time. If you're applying to the MS in Climate program and specifically climate systems and analytics, I would recommend, for example, also sharing a GRE score, for example, but that's also not mandatory, but it could enhance your candidacy if you don't have quantitative courses to point to. Again, what I want to emphasize is there's no minimum course requirement, but it's highly recommended for competitiveness if you're applying to the MS in Climate program, for example, having a statistics course under your belt, having a calculus course potentially. Um, in addition to so forgive me. So you're going to upload your resume, 2 letters of recommendation. One must be academic only if you've been enrolled in a college or university in the last 5 years. If it's been more than 5 years, you can use 2 professional recommendation letters. That's completely fine. We also need all of your unofficial college transcripts uploaded to the application. And then if English is not your first language, and if English was not the language of instruction, we're going to ask in your undergraduate university, we would ask for either a TOEFL, an IELTS, or a Duolingo English test. And then finally, the statement of purpose. For the MS in Climate Finance, and by the way, the statement of purpose is up to 1,000 words across our programs. And I think they're a phenomenal opportunity for you to really kind of deep dive into why this graduate degree program makes sense for you, how you can contribute to our learning community, and what your ultimate goals are post-Columbia Climate School. How do you wish to make an impact in the world? The MS in Climate Finance program has a nearly identical application process with exception to one item. We also have another document that we asked you to upload, which is the quantitative resume. And Damaris, if you could do me a favor in the chat box, copy and paste the quantitative resume, that gives you clear guidance on the format with which we want to see. But we want you to outline both quantitative professional work that you pursued, as well as quantitative coursework that you pursued while in your undergraduate or graduate journeys. We do have students, by the way, at Columbia Climate School that are pursuing all of our master's programs as, interestingly, second graduate degrees. So we've had students that are joining us that completed business degrees like MBAs, MPA programs, and now they're looking to really focus and hone in on climate. So again, you would want to send us all those unofficial college transcripts. The statements of purpose across the programs are extremely similar. It's essentially share your key experiences. What are your academic and professional goals? Why, this program? So in this case, it's MA Climate and Society. Why the MS in Climate? Why the MS in Climate Finance? And then finally, which of those core courses you're most excited to pursue in the given programs? So in this case, it's the MA Climate Society. MS in Climate, the nuance would be to share with us a little bit more about the advanced certificate you wish to pursue. Alternatively, you would share the dual degree, perhaps that you would be most interested in if you're applying to us specifically for the dual degree opportunity. And then again, climate finance, very similar prompt, except it's of climate finance focus. Okay, so what I am going to do now, and admissions@climate.columbia.edu, and I have some time, so we are going to stay back. You were patient. I see 58 still on the call, so I am going to stay back and answer these questions. Are we ready, Damaris? Are we ready to rock and roll? I'm gonna hit stop share. And I'm gonna go to the Q&A. Okay, so first question, and Damaris, you want to come off camera just to be fun with it? Feel free. Um, in terms of the first question, is there an emphasis of climate finance masters more focused on corporate work or NGO governmental? I'm more interested in working in business/corporate work afterwards, ESG consulting. The answer is both can be. I think that through your elective journeys, you are absolutely able to kind of pursue both. And I think what was really helpful when you were looking at the kind of the incoming class profile, Nicole, you can see quite a few students. In fact, the majority are coming from the private sector, and their focus is on corporate work. So this program can absolutely be an excellent fit for you if that is your interest. In terms of the next question, is the climate finance program primarily designed for careers in industry? A similar question. Are there any opportunities for students to engage in research projects and work with faculty on more academic topics? I will say it is primarily an industry-based engagement. So the MS in Climate Finance program doesn't have a thesis component, for example. We have had students at Columbia Climate School that have pursued, for example, the program specifically as independent studies at Columbia Climate School. I'm not speaking to the MS in Climate Finance program. So we've had students that have pursued research from that lens. But by and large, if you're interested in the climate finance program, you're interested from a professional standpoint in pursuing a professional role post-degree. Sarah's next question is, what qualities or experiences does the admissions committee value most in a successful applicant, especially for those pursuing an interdisciplinary dual degree path? So in terms of the professional experiences, I always like to note this is that the admissions committee, and I say this, they take a holistic approach, but what they're truly thinking about oftentimes is when they're reading the candidate, what is this candidate going to be contributing to the learning community? So when they raise their hand and when they share their key experiences in the classroom, how is that key experience going to elevate the overall environment for everybody else? So Sarah, kind of what is your lens? What is your perspective? What is perhaps your lived experiences that's going to be elevating the overall learning community? That's extremely broad, what I am sharing with you now. But I think it is helpful when you're thinking about writing your statement of purpose and describing your goals and motivations. Also think, Sarah, how are you different and very unique from another candidate, for example? In terms of how it's decided whether to do capstone workshop or the internship for climate finance. Alex, that's a great question. Because the internship is self-sourced, it's very possible if you don't get an internship, the capstone is going to be there for you and available to you. So really you're going to be the driver of that decision. Oftentimes, if you get an internship and the internship aligns with your summer schedule and it's meaningful and it makes sense to you, then you can pursue the internship. But otherwise, you would have phenomenal, and I want to stress that, really strong capstone opportunities for climate finance. I don't have specific examples for you, but I'm certain I'm going to have more to come in the coming months. And then how many students are in the climate finance cohort? We're expecting just around 60 students joining us for fall 2025. So we're very excited about that. For the MA Climate Society, what is the maximum allowable semesters that I can use to complete the degree as a working professional here? That's an excellent question. The maximum number of semesters would be 6 semesters over 2 years. It has to be completed within 2 years. So the cadence of the program and the coursework is a 2-year cadence. And in fact, while I'm doing this, let me just one moment, I do have a website that I think that you would find helpful as a prospective part-time student. And it relates to residence units, and there's a part-time schedule there. One moment, tuition and fees, Columbia Climate School. I'll go ahead and pull that open. And while I'm doing that, Damaris, do you want to look at a question that might have come up? Are you unable to come off camera, Damaris?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So one question that came up actually from a couple of students is if you can go into the differences between um, the SUMA program, sustainability management, and SEPA. I guess students are just more interested in like what are the other opportunities in the climate and sustainability space. And so if you can speak a little bit about that,
So that's a
I think it'll
great
be helpful.
question. That's a really great question. And Damaris, actually, I'm going to ask you to do one more thing now, too. If you could copy and paste our open house event, the specific registration for Columbia Climate School Open House. So I don't know where everybody is going to be on Halloween, but I strongly suggest you come to New York City and visit Columbia Climate Schools because we are going to be hosting a phenomenal climate and sustainability open house event on October 31st, which is a Friday, 2025. And at that event, there are going to be breakout sessions across all of the Columbia Climate School programs and partner programs. We're really excited about it. Our Dean Alexis Abramson will be there. Our phenomenal faculty directors, of course, are going to be there. But if you are able to make it, if you're able to travel to New York, I am begging, pleading, imploring you, come to this event because that's largely going to get that question answered. You're asking about the distinction between these programs. These programs are quite distinct. The cadence of the programs, the learning audience. So, for example, the MS in Sustainability Management program is an exceptional degree program. It's the oldest sustainability management program here in the United States and in the world, I believe. And it's led by Professor Stephen Cohen, a preeminent leader in the space. In terms of this sustainability management program, they have over 70 different courses. It's extremely flexible. In that degree program, there are just 2 required courses across your learning adventure there. It's sustainability management in your first semester, and then a capstone that would occur in your final semester in the program. The program is also designed for working professionals. So all courses are delivered in the evening to maximize evening, and they even have some online courses to maximize your flexibility from that standpoint. The MPA and Environmental Science Policy program at SEPA is the oldest program in the portfolio. It was established in 2002. It's the truest form of a cohort, 1 year, 3 semester. Again, I would use the term prescriptive curriculum, but it's 54 credit hours in a 1 year program. So it's extremely, challenging, but in a very enriching way. And it's very thematic in its delivery. So all the programs are very different. All the programs are very unique. What I suggest, because it's July, is now is the time to register for their info sessions. And every one of those programs, oh, I'm so glad, Prasoon. Definitely. We can't wait to see you. Welcome. Maybe we'll do a costume theme. Who knows? We're going to have fun. Regardless, we're going to have fun. But what I recommend now is don't just take me for my word. Register for each of their info sessions, attend them, hear directly from their faculty, hear directly from their administrators. They're all phenomenal programs. Ultimately, you are the decider of which program is going to be the best fit for you. Um, Another question is there a formal concept of academic excellence in the MS Climate Finance program, which grading scale is used? So it's a 4.0, so it's a 4.0 grading scale. And is there a distinction between cum laude, magna cum laude, summa cum laude to recognize high academic achievement? That's a very good question. Damaris, you know what? We just had our graduation. Did you notice the distinctions listed in the handbook?
No, there were no distinctions listed, and I don't think
Yeah,
that's offered at the graduate level. It's
thank you. Yeah,
typically an
yeah, yeah.
undergraduate
It's a
practice.
specific, that was a specific question and I loved it. But and then is there a campus job available like research assistantships? Absolutely. Research assistantships are available. Teaching assistantships are available at Columbia Climate School. The one thing we can't do is guarantee them in the application process. So there's a competitive process at the time that you matriculate. There is Columbia Climate School research assistantships that are available in the summer. And then teaching assistantships are available throughout the academic year. Typically, they are not available to students in their first semester, though. Um, is there space to discuss soul searching topics? I love it, Philip. We love soul searching. During the PAC academic and professional program, I'd love to meet people who are willing to honestly talk about what is the right thing to do with the mess we found ourselves in. I often struggle to have the consistent philosophy in these questions and to keep my head up in daily life, looking for inspiration. Oh my gosh, Philip, we're always happy. You know, one thing to know, and actually, Damaris, if you could plug my one-on-one appointments, we're always happy to have one-on-one conversations too as a prospective student. And if you are interested in also speaking to a current student, we can facilitate that connection, like authentically hearing about their experiences. I know these are dynamic times that we live in, but I think the way we should always phrase climate and the study of climate is really, obviously it presents challenges, but I think that it also presents incredible opportunities that we need to explore. So keep that head above water. Don't worry, and just know that you're going to affect great change. And feel free to register for a one-on-one appointment. But I just want to say that you guys were a phenomenal group. I so appreciate you all for staying with us like 15 minutes past. And if you have follow-up questions, please reach out. And I just want to say, climate finance, for example, Damaris, can you share with us what's the first date for climate finance virtual info session? When's the first one? I put you on the spot, Damaris. I always do this. Do you want me to look?
Give me a moment. Okay, so the first date for the climate finance info session is Monday, September 29th at 10 a.m.
Awesome. And then what about MA Climate Society?
Wednesday, October 1st at 11 a.m.
And then MS in Climate?
Wednesday, October 8th at 10 a.m.
And for the MS in Climate Finance, who are our faculty guest speakers?
For climate finance, we have Lisa Sachs and Gernot Wagner.
Awesome.
And for MA in Climate and Society, we have Lisa Dale and Sheila Foster. And lastly, for MS in Climate, we have Bradley Horton, Michael Kuma, and Jason Smurden.
Awesome. If you could also, just repaste the info sessions in the chat, that would be great. Just to remind everybody, we want you to register for these unique program-specific info sessions. That's critical. And without further ado, I just want to say a huge thank you, and huge thank you to Damaris Diaz, the one and Damaris, come off camera. Everybody needs to know who Damaris is. Please, that favor.
I literally can't.
Oh, you can't. Oh, I'm so sorry. My apologies, everybody. That's why. So that's right, because you're using the dual monitor. My apologies, everybody. Damaris is phenomenal, though, and thank you to Peyton. I know Peyton had to go to Capstone, but thank you, everybody. Have a phenomenal rest of the week, and please, please, please reach out if you have follow-up questions. The application is going to be opening in early September. Stay tuned. We'll have a big announcement about that, and I can't wait to connect with all of you. Take care and have a good one, okay? Bye, everybody.